Hey, so we're back at the bus again. We talked before about cutting out or scraping out all the sealant or the caulk around the windows because we had some leaks on the inside. We had it on the other side. We're pretty sure we got those sealed up. We got them resealed. Sorry, we pulled out the seal, got them resealed, doused it with water. We did that, ended up doing that entire side, and we didn't notice any more leaking. So kind of hedging our bets, we decided to tackle this whole other side. We're down to the last window here, but kind of just want to go over some quick tips in case you're tackling this yourself. So obviously there are different tools and methods you can go about it. Just going to talk about a couple that were useful for us. Number one, temperature. It's overcast today, as you can probably tell, and it's a little chilly based on what I'm wearing. In the mid 40s is, I think, a good temperature. We were doing stuff in the 30s, and you can do it in the 30s. The sealant stays pretty rigid and it's easier to cut out, but your fingers get numb, you gotta do it's not, etc. 40 seems pretty good. We did it last time, and it was in the 40s, but it was sunny, so we had it out in the sun, and the sun, just the direct sunlight, was heating up the factory sealant to a gummy consistency, and that was a big pain in the ass. So we came back out where it's a little chillier to keep it a little more rigid, and that seems to work pretty well. So like I said, we're using a couple different scrapers. Angelique was using this one and having a harder time with it. You can see that the bevel edge isn't tapered down to a fine point edge. This one's a little bit better. And we've been having a little cleaner success with it. But I haven't used this one at all until I just did one, and it's a bit of a different technique I was using, but it came out pretty well. So let's go over that. And then a good screwdriver and utility knife is good too. A screwdriver, you want to get something that's going to fit in this there's a little groove right underneath the window, and that's good for scraping out the excess stuff as well as pulling the original sealant away. So really it is just like you would move any others sealant. It's different from bathroom caulk because you can use a grinder, but it's just wedging this under and sliding it along to break the contact between it and the surface, right? So it's just getting like that, getting underneath and working it through. You eventually get to a point where you can do the other side as well, go in the opposite direction, and the top as well, going this way. And you can see it peels back. There's like I mentioned on this other side, there's a little groove here, so you have a bit of a probably 1/32 lip there that you can rest the blade on. It is aluminum, so if you dig into the aluminum, you're gonna strip some of that away, so just keep that in mind. You don't want to get too forceful and go directly, the corner right into it, because it will cut away some of that aluminum. So that's one method. Get it nice and loosened up, peel back, and then you can start peeling it out. I'm doing this a little different than I usually do it, just for the example here. So yeah, you see? So once you get it started, you can kind of peel it back, and if you're lucky, it just comes right up in one whole strip. The other scraper, what I've learned is if you take the pointed edge, you really want to angle it down so that that edge meets as much of the surface, the metal surface, as possible. And you should take your time. If it slips, you can accidentally gouge yourself or something on the bus. So basically the same technique to loosen it up on the sides. You could do the same thing at the top, but what I did with this one is I did the bottom, right, kind of scored it, and then I took the big wide flat edge and kind of started working it in and prying it up. So we go in. Let's get a little more. So as you can see, it's slowly peeling it up and away from the aluminum window. The other thing to note is that some of your windows might not be window frames might not be laying flush with the actual window sill, the metal. So if you can, if you're not going to take the entire window out and reseal it on the inside and then slip it back in, You just want to make sure you're not pulling out the caulk that's underneath the actual window. Granted, it's going to get refilled anyway, so if you do incidentally, that's not an issue. If you want to go ahead, we did do it on a couple windows where we pulled the entire window out and resealed it, but for the most part, our leaks weren't that bad, so we're just pulling out the old sealant and resealing it, making sure everything's nice and sealed on the outside. So, as you can see, it's slowly coming back. So now I'm in that groove now that I talked about. And you'll see, if you keep working it, it starts to pop away and it comes off, and you can kind of do the same thing and tear it away. So now, I mean, I this one didn't come off super well because I was kind of rushing it a bit. Although it did come off a little better before on the other one. But if you work it, take your time. It should come off cleaner than that. But if it doesn't, that's what your screwdriver's for. That's why you want to get one that fits in that little groove. Basically wedge that in there. Get some leverage behind it and just start scraping it out. Again, you can accidentally start pulling away some of the aluminum too, gouging that, so you want to be careful. But yeah, that's pretty much the two techniques we've been using. This is the last window before I get carried away with that. The corners are a tricky bit, so it's a matter of it seems the screwdrivers work pretty well, but if you're holding it while you're peeling it, you can wedge this in where you're actually getting the screwdriver to pull the sealant right off the metal. And every window is going to be different, but you see, if you can see in there, I don't know if you can or not, see how cleanly that came off right there? Yeah. So if you're delicate enough and patient, you can get that. So
That's
the tricky
not
part,
me.
the tricky part with the corners though is that side's fine. You can see it. The perpendicular end is fine as well. It's the parallel side that's on this side that can be a bit of a pain. What you want to do, what I've been doing, because you want to get as much of this stuff out, so when you get the new stuff in, you can get a nice tight seal against the surfaces. So I've basically just been using the corners of this in different fashions, coming down, just trying to wedge it and get it into that corner as much as I can, force it down to break that away, seal it from the metal or the aluminum frame. Same thing this way, just basically carving it out as close as I can. So because it's a flat surface, you're gonna have to get some fingers in here and kind of wedge it back so you're getting good contact. Yeah, I found it useful to actually use if your glass is slightly tinted like ours, or even the darker the tint on the window, the better it is to use as a mirror. So you can use it as a mirror as you're working here to make sure you're getting it nice and clean. So yeah, it's working that out, and then using this screw to wedge it out even more from underneath. And if you're doing this, you'll notice, so you're not surprised, there is a little bit of a groove or divot on the actual sill side inside these little gaps. We did have one part where the metal was completely gone. Maybe it was to patch some wires at some point, but if you can see, I don't know if you can tell this one, it's still kind of filled a little with the excess sealant. There's a bit of a groove there. You don't have to clean it out completely. I've kind of worked out that if you could just get it cut around along the actual edge of the surface and keep that seal unbroken between the actual frame and the surface, that's great. We're just basically gonna put that bead in at a 45 degree. So you work that out as best you can. Now the only other thing is the sides. If you're lucky, everything's centered. The window frame is centered on these mullions, and you'll actually have a ridge. But you'll notice, you'll see more gray sealant here because the window sill comes out more. On this side, not so much. Maybe not even an eighth, probably maybe a 16th if we're lucky. So that means less sealant, which is fine, but it means it's going to be a bigger pain to clean it out because most of it is sealed from the inside where the two surfaces meet or make contact. So it's really just getting the blade in there and just wedging it down. See, with this side that doesn't have a lot of it on, you can easily just run it down and peel it back, and it comes right off. Now it's not gonna, I'm not completely taking the seal off. I'm not breaking the seal between the surfaces where they make contact inside. As you can see, that's still there. What I'm doing though is getting the surface as perpendicular in that corner as I can and clean, so when we get a bead in there, it's got enough surface to make contact with and hold it in place. So the other side, same technique, although there's more. It's gonna have a little more elbow grease involved. You slide it all the way up, and if you're lucky, it comes up like that. Pretty easy. If you're not, you'll have to work it a little more. And then you do it on the opposite plane and do the exact same thing. And you run it up. So just meet it as best as you can where the two surfaces meet in the corner there, and then just slide it. I'm using my right hand to pivot the blade and control it. Obviously, the left is just giving me the force. So that goes all the way up. Break that off. Voila, as they say, comes right off.